Hello, thanks for watching. I'm doing a little update video and just some education. It's that time. Turkeys. I'll let y'all see this. Interesting. I hope y'all can see them. We'll see if you can or not later. You see there's an albino turkey in the bunch. It's a community. So that'll be another video for another day. I will share a little bit about the turkeys. Besides the eagle, which is now our national bird, the turkey was originally going to be our national bird. Benjamin Franklin studied them for a long time and had decided that they were amazing birds, and they are. They are very community minded. They help the ground. I've watched them worship the trees. I mean, they are unbelievable. Plus, they're very weird looking. They remind me of dragons. And that whole energy of dragons or mythical creatures. There's even some Thoth energy in the turkeys. Actually, if you look at the turkey head, it's very similar to a Thoth head. Also, it is hard to determine the turkey's sex unless you actually are able to observe them during mating season, because and also the females will have hair on their heads where the males will not. The females will have, and actually both will have a beard. So it's very interesting about the turkey. Nature represents the divine. So, renamed this Melissae, Melissa messages. My name is Amy, and at one point, one of my names was Melissa for a very, very short time in my life. So, I'm going to share this book / tarot deck with everybody. It's called the Sibyls Oraculum by Diana Lee McKeeler. I like this book a lot. She talks about the African Sibyls, our African doves, the black doves, and this goes into the Bible, which I've renamed the Sibyl. But Melissa, so I'm going to pull up the page. There's two names on that page. I think it is Purpose. So this deck is pretty rad. If anybody's interested in tarot reading cards, it's a lot of work. You're required to do work in the beginning. I'm going to actually redo the work. I got this book probably about a year ago, and it has purpose cards, then it has energy cards to help, and the Sibyls didn't always have regular tarot cards like we have now. Those changed throughout the years. I mean, Sibyls used to read leaves, and that's still a tradition where people will read tea leaves. Okay. All right, let me find. So I'll just share with you what I do know about the name Melissa. Here we go. Melissae. So it has both Cybele or Sibylle or Melissae, and this goes along with the Purpose card. Religio-mythological associations, or religious mythological associations. Cybele was the ancient Fijian or Anatolian supreme mother goddess. Her worship spread to Greece, Rome, Libya, and Kemet, and her temples and sanctuaries were caves and mountains. Melissae. Other names for Melissae are Neith, Artemis, Rhea, Diana, Aphrodite, etc. Was the great mother and referred to as Melissa or Queen Bee. The Pythian Sibyl priestesses of Delphi were called Melissae, which means bees. What's interesting about Melissae too is because the Pythian goddesses were also considered serpent goddesses. And so I share this because if you are studying about the goddess or you're studying about the new divine energy, a great book to get, which I don't have out here, I don't think, is called Mami Wata. And it talks about the Sibyls, the priestesses, the black doves, and a lot of truths that have been usurped or stolen by Rome and retaught to the world. And to me, the great mother, the great female voice was erased, specifically through religion. There's so many things in the Bible / Sibyl that I don't believe were actually part of the Bible. I just was able to watch a little video on YouTube last night. There's a woman who studies the Bible and actually talks about one of the books being changed 400 and something times. And that most people don't know that. And I thought to myself, well, why do they say anybody who changes the words of the Bible will be punished? Well, I believe, and according to that book I just mentioned, Mami Wata, is that was flipped around. I think that all the teachings, I believe there's proof. One of them also is Anubis and Thoth, right? When we listen to the book of Thoth, he speaks about some of the things he says to Isis. And it's emphasized about a boy or a girl, and even Thoth being either male or female. Well, in a great show to watch also, if you have a chance on Netflix, is The Pyramid Codes, where this woman actually goes in depth about the pyramids and discovers that everything actually went back to the feminine. And in order for you to be a pharaoh, to be represented, you had to be accepted by the females. And then we look at history. Anput is one name. Wajdet is the other name. It's a popular name. And one of her sisters, and they were twins, and one ruled Upper Egypt and one ruled Lower Egypt. And you will see throughout almost every single deity. They all go back to a serpent mother. And they all go back to very similar energies. I mean, even Wajdet is said to have come to destroy the world, and that to lure her back to her place, they poured pomegranate juice in the rivers, and she thought it was blood, and they were able to, capture her. Well, you hear the same story about Bastet, and you hear the same story about Shiva or Kali Ma. So, and also there's some in all the religions, you will see a similarity between the first deities. So, mothers are the first, and you will also see in a lot of religion, matriarchy being the first. One of the tricks I noticed is, in all religion, everything comes from Judaism, really, right? The first half of the Bible is the Torah, in English. All throughout the Bible, it'll say what it means in Hebrew. That means even Islam is based in a Jewish history. And that religion in itself is matriarchal. You're not Jewish unless your mother is Jewish. So I think we've been given constant hints. The basic hint is that women give birth. Okay. Now, in a channeling, I'm writing a book about Anput and Lilen, or Lilith, Enlil. Take some of these names and spell them backwards, and you'll get a lot of hints as to more truths. I know that there is one story where they say that Enki is Enlil, but I believe that Enki is more related to like the name Nikki, and I'm still trying to decipher certain parts of these stories, and that Eve basically was created out of the story Frankenstein kind of comes from Eve. Recently, I've done some studying. Eve means to live. In this channeling about the two first twins, Anput, aka Wajdet or Input, and Lilith or Lilen or Enlil, they're getting kicked out of heaven, which is basically, and the whole story of like our creation of the planet and these type of things. So with Marduk, which is where we get murder from, Marduk took the life of his mother and took the life also of his wife. And in her death, used her womb, kept her womb alive, because the technology, quote unquote, that we have had, can have as magical beings, these beings that are of the essence of the divine, was able to basically have like a test tube baby, but not. It was in a womb, grew in a womb that was not attached to a body. It's also where C-section comes from, or that type of operation. We did all kinds of operations and stuff before with bodies. Like, we helped make bodies. Like, that's what these deities did. So for him, he did not actually give birth. Eve was not given birth to. She was created specifically to be a conduit to help patriarchy, basically, the story of Adam and Eve. And she would be a Sibyl that was devoted to the masculine deity, God. And this is where like the half-truths and half-falsehoods come out in books. This creator deity that we have been story told about in the Sibyl books, or the Bible, or these books of religion, come from the original mother, the writings of the original mother. Astrology, the alphabet. The Bible is actually written alphabetically originally. Acts would be first. Then it goes into the rest. There are 3 books in the Bible. There are 3 books that were sold by Cumae to a certain king. And kings and queens were the same. There wasn't a separate name. And actually Q and K can have the same sound. I actually think it started as king or queen. And then somehow in this shift of stories, it became king and queen, defining female and male, because in the beginning, in all creation, it's a circle. A circle represents, this is Alpha, Omega, infinity, 2 circles put together. Even if you don't put 2 circles together, and you will see that circle represented as a giant snake eating its tail. Snakes typically represent the female, the Sibyls. I just watched a video about St. Patrick. There are so many stories about the Sibyls, the snakes. Why in the Bible does it say we cast you beneath all other beings? Eve who was great. Oh my gosh. So a little bit of this information is just about that, the goddesses, and new information. The newest information is that, and I shared this in the last video, is that Eve now understands that she was created for misogyny and patriarchy. Now, shifting a little bit into, because I feel like there's this big connection between this discovery and some of my own personal work, which is we live in a world where there's so much in belief, and there's so much in politics and love, what love's supposed to look like. And through this discovery, the great message was our voice, the feminine voice and the feminine truth. So if you go back to the very, very beginning, and this is part of the beginning. There's a beginning before this beginning. There's a beginning where we get the idea of heaven is tones, or these colors, this like rainbow tones and colors, okay? Oh, and I just discovered this by looking at a picture of me as a kid. So each of our ears, and our tone changes. They actually hold a key, a symbol of the key. Mine kind of looks like F, like a P and an F. So our ears, actually give a hint to our tone and the tone that we hear. Creative planets, tones and sounds. This is where we get the laws and we get vibration, and you can see how it all fits together. And also, all right, coming down to a microcosm of each being and each person, and a general desire to connect and be loved and feel loved. I've come to recognize a self and outwardly connection to narcissism. In all fairness, I'm going to call it misogyny, because narcissism, all right, I'm going to call it misogyny and misandry. Misandry would be the word for women who hate men and boys. The reason why I say that is because narcissists, the deity that we have named, or that doctors have referred extreme self-love or lack of focus on anything else but the self, as narcissism. In a weird way, I want to defend narcissists, because the story is, so what I learned in some of my studies is that narcissist was a deity who was given the option of love, true love. And one of his loves was a little different, so to speak. I can't remember. She couldn't hear, she couldn't see, or she couldn't speak. And he actually was in love with another male. But the gods came to Narcissus and said, listen, you can't have them both. You need to pick one. Just be honest. And he didn't want to. He couldn't pick one. So they kind of they took those two lovers away and left him by himself. And then he saw his reflection in the water and he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so beautiful. And just stayed connected to himself. He didn't go out and tell lies on purpose. He had already done that. He did tell lies on purpose so that he could keep two loves, but not to purposely harm them or to purposely take something from them, or because he didn't know who he was himself. His true idea was he didn't want to hurt their feelings, and he didn't want to actually feel ashamed for having a love that might have been taboo, so to speak. And this is a story retold by humans, right? Because I think deities, maybe I'm wrong, but I think deities, well, were created in their image, right? Anyhow, narcissism and codependency, or empathy, being with my own experience and being somewhat a loner, in the sense of even within my own family, and each family has their own stuff, all right, and if we go back to the beginnings of the goddess, and she's the teacher, and she's the one who knows the alphabet and the stars and the herbs and the plants, and connects to the planet and the beings outside of the planet in a way that, I mean, the stories are that Cumae nursed Zeus, that Wajdet nursed Horus, that Bastet nursed, I believe, Horus as well. And each deities can change the way they look, from a serpent to a vulture to a cat or a dog. So if her voice is then demeaned, and in two ways, specifically through religion, where men are allowed to not listen to us, where God actually comes to Adam's defense in the garden and takes his side and punishes him to work forever, but punishes her to child pain forever. What kind of deity is this? And then at the end of all of that, we have Jesus. Okay. There are other people who have told this. If you're a linguistics person, you know this. There are a lot of letters that exist now that didn't exist. And J is one of them. Right? So I actually kind of go back to the original religions, which would be indigenous, where I actually think it's Eshu, or wind. Okay? And a feminine energy of softness and roughness, right? And what's beautiful about Jesus, this deity, is that this deity is about love. On the basic in the Bible. This isn't talking about the family up in the capital, that's been usurping Jesus as a confidant for specifically higher ups and those who can be actual narcissists to the planet and not actually have any responsibility, so to speak, because they're in a political field and they're being preyed over in this huge family that, this is on Netflix, that is all Jesus based, but not the Jesus that we learned about in the common Bible that everyone can get, where you turn the other cheek, no more eye for an eye, and love thy neighbor, and give to those in need, and be of service, and love the planet, and love animals, and love children. And even Jesus says the story is that Jesus says that Mary is his teacher. Okay. I think Jesus is based on the story of Horus, based on the story of Zeus. The one child that came in. And I do believe that there are two parts of the story. I believe that there was a daughter that came in, Eve, that was the daughter of patriarchy. And I believe that there was a son that came in, David. David is the father of patriarchy. But I actually think at first, because all those Psalms, those are all to his mother. Those are all to the goddess. I think that it's possible that some of these things have just been switched around. I think I'm going all over the place. Some of these things have been switched around to condone cognitive dissonance. Like the fact that the first half of the Bible is the Torah. And then the New Testament is Jesus. And it's actually confusing because neither one of them really support women. Except for we're supposed to follow men around. I know this is it might, I don't really care if it pisses people off. But I say all this because information is needed to get out there. This is me doing my own work. Figuring out that I have been emotionally charged by the planet, emotionally charged by people, emotionally had to go through some stuff in my own life and didn't realize that I didn't have certain boundaries and certain knowing about the possibility that there are people out there who will plot and scheme, literally seek out people who can be easily manipulated. And narcissists will do a lot of things, specifically lie often, and create a sense of craziness. And I think that by doing that to the entire planet, convincing them that some things that are literally impossible, okay, anything's possible, right? We say that anything's possible. We're still waiting for men to give birth. So I think anything's possible from the creation side, right? From the female side. And mothers love their children, period, usually, And we need to be safe and protected. And this is what's happened. We live in a world where women, specifically brown women, black women, and indigenous women, and all the way down to white women, children. So, to me, this is where it starts, is kind of getting some education. All right, so I want to start sharing a little bit of healing tips. One of the last things I shared with the class was jumping in ice cold water, doing a cold bath. I think the most important thing in all of this, why I'm working towards being a better person and healing myself, is my mental state of mind, my mental well-being, being able to go into meditation, quiet your mind. It's taken me years. It doesn't work all the time. Sometimes I can't even sit for 1 second. Sometimes I can sit longer and I'm surprised. There are lots of meditations on YouTube. There are lots of books on meditations. One of the things that worked well for me, because I have a lot of Mercury in my sign, so I do a lot of thinking. It's actually difficult sometimes for me to quiet my mind, which is why it's important for people like me to quiet my mind. So Geminis, Virgos, or if you have those in your sign, breathing and counting. So you start with 1 and you go up to 10, and then you go backwards. Get to 10 and you go to 9 and you go backwards. You can use a candle. You can close your eyes. You can stare at the wall. You can lay down. That's a great one. And the focus is to come back to the numbers. And I've done it where I'm like at 16 and I'm like, oh yeah, didn't start over. Or forget my backwards count and start over. And that's also part of it, recognizing where your mind goes and then recognizing certain emotions. Yes, I still have my moments, but as far as like being triggered so easily and not being able to have boundaries, or feeling intimidated even sharing this on my channel about myself and being honest, I literally thought that I couldn't do that because that's not what spiritual people do. So that's one of the other things, is like, you're alive, you're spiritual. And sometimes being honest and sharing is, even if no one listens, it's off my chest, and there's some relief in that. So, a little help with meditation and the breathing. A little share about Melissae's and the Serpent messengers. Have a good day. See you next time.